audio. Anyways, no, it's funny. So recently, this webcam. I've had this webcam in particular ever since I've really started. I think ever since I've started this podcast or the previous podcast, I should say, the Postmodern Art podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get like a new one because like there are times where this one could glitch out if the wiring is just like a little loose or whatnot. So I tried to get one from the same company. Like it's a really cheap one from Larmatech, if that tells you anything. The thing is though, this is like the model after this current one. And so like whenever I plug this one in just to see, I'm like, oh my god, it's bright as all get out. So
yeah, I noticed that the exposure is a little too high. Like you get a lot of saturation and artifacting, which is this is extremely high quality, the one you're using right now. So
right, it's very simple. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's a good one to do? I'll do it in the native tongue of my grandparents. Nastrovia.
Nastrovia.
Oh,
yeah, that got me too. I was just saying, last week-ish on Monday, we watched practically all of Star Wars, like at least episode 4, and I had the little like mouthwash-sized bottles of this Tennessee whiskey. I practically finished it in one night while I was recording, while I was watching the movie, and I don't know how I managed to get through it. Like, this is powerful shit. I might have just activated a superpower.
Either that, or you were smart enough to also like. Were you like drinking any water or any other drinks in between or whatnot? Like,
yeah.
Then there you go. You were just diluting it throughout. That's all it is.
Well, I've never been blackout drunk before, but I was extremely close. I think. I was definitely like, whenever I would close my eyes in the middle of a conversation, I felt like, whoa, time's flowing right now. It's really happening. I'm still awake.
I don't know if I should tell it now or if I should tell it for a future episode or whatnot, but I have a great story of the first time I got drunk, because it's about the closest I ever got to blackout drunk.
Oh, God. Drinking not drinking, but talking about getting drunk, I guess.
I'm gonna write that down in future episode ideas or whatnot. We just need to have a drunk episode, just an episode where we're drunk going into it.
Oh god, that'd be so incohesive. We wouldn't be able to I don't know how editing would go. I would have no idea what's happening the entire time.
Look, look, that's a problem for sober you, not drunk you.
That is fair. Not even talking about the fact that the night that we normally record is on a Friday night. I have to be up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then I edit it like a week later. I would totally forget exactly what we talked about.
That's why what we need to do is we need to do like a recording like we're doing tonight. Like I could take like the following day off or whatnot, but like just record it on Tuesday, get fucking not blackout drunk, but get fairly drunk or whatnot.
No blackout for me. That would be oof. I have taken some pride in not being blackout. I don't really ever want to reach that point personally for me. Like that's just
I don't either. That's never appealing for me because you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of people who just they raid their own fridges. They wake up with all their food next to their bed, half eaten. And yeah, it's
that's just me on a normal Saturday night, like without the alcohol.
the GIW night you were watching along, having the popcorn, and then you passed out.
I wasn't thank God I wasn't eating anything because God that would have spilled all over my bed or whatnot. But because I don't know what, just like I had that sudden rush of just like exhaustion as the night just went on or whatnot. But it's like I didn't expect to pass out, and it wouldn't have been so bad if people had told me, "Oh yeah, you were snoring and all that." But Damaris recorded a little bit of it and sent me like an audio clip of me snoring, and I love Damaris, I really do. But like I heard that and I became super self-conscious with myself.
What a bastard. So, for those that don't know, GIW is a wrestling stream that our friend Maxwell Flyweight runs. Oh my god, I couldn't even
Yes.
speak there. Not drunk, promise. Um,
Not yet.
Almost every month, it's kind of like a give or take on the exact day, but it is usually a monthly occurrence. We
They
all sit
usually
down.
sorry, last time I checked, they usually do it like what? Like the last Friday of the month more often than not.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were all gathered up watching the show. It was a good old time. And suddenly I had asked Post a question, and I thought oh sorry, Nathan. I'm gonna do that every time. I had asked Nathan a question, and I had sworn that Nathan responded to me. And I heard like a yeah, and then not 5 minutes later, snoring coming from the other side of the mic.
What was the question you asked me?
Well, I was actually editing our last episode with Tank Bearclaw, the work
Mm-hmm.
episode, and I was like almost, I would say 3/4 of the way there, and I just sent a screenshot to the chat in general, and I was like, "What does this look like to you all?" Because this is my workflow right now, and it was just the
Okay.
timeline of the Premiere project, and
Okay, yeah, I do not remember that. I definitely do not remember that. I was passed out by that point.
yeah, do you remember how you passed out? Did you just like fall to your side and
So I'll admit, like I was because like if I'm like comfortable and I'm not like doing anything in the moment or whatnot, because I'm on my bed, like half the time when I'm in VCs, I'm just going ahead and just like laying down like this way and like maybe I got the PlayStation pulled up around. I think at that point I had turned it off because but like just laying down my side and I'm just watching it. I guess I just got a little too comfortable and I just passed out.
yeah, that happens to me as well. You know what else happens to me?
What happens to you, Iris?
Segway.
Ah, yes, the master of the segues, Iris herself.
Yeah, it cracks me up every single time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Get Connected with Iris and Nathan. I'm Iris,
And I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we get connected with each other and you. And today's topic is work stories. I guess
Yes.
good or bad. Usually, when I think about work stories, I'm always to the negative because that's what I remember the most.
I luckily for me, I feel like I got a little bit of both. Because I mean, like the best way I could word it, I feel like this is one that you would relate to or whatnot. But like if you go to a restaurant, you go in one time and it's not an incredible experience, but it's a good experience. Like the food is good, the waiter's nice to you or whatnot. Like it's a good experience. You're gonna remember it fondly. But if you go to a restaurant, it's a horrible experience. Like the food is like completely undercooked and miserable. The wait set, like you're waiting like an hour and a half just to get your appetizers out, stuff like that. Which one are you gonna remember more? The good experience that was just a casual experience, or the horrible experience? You're gonna remember the horrible one more often than not.
Oh yeah, that's just human nature to pick out the flaws of things that happen to you or to people around you first. Because it's like that's like a survival instinct is like I will never do this again, but I have to remember to never do this again. But before we get into the main topic, we actually missed this last week, and Nathan can attest I was kicking myself. We never talked about our weeks last week, and well, here we are talking about our weeks. So Nathan, you went on vacation the week
Yes, I
prior.
did.
How was? I guess we'll both paraphrase in like a nice way. How was your vacation, and how was this last week?
So the vacation was a good bit of fun. For context, I had went to Helen, Georgia, which is this nice little like mountain area, up in Georgia. That's got a lot of like a German influence to it. I guess would be
Okay.
like the 17th, 18th century, like German village and like schnitzel and all the stuff like that. Um, like really good place to get away from it. Luckily my mom was able to be there for a day. She was the one that paid for the entire thing. Which mom, I'm forever grateful for. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
But like whenever we got there, I was basically paying for like a lot of the meals and stuff like that, which wasn't a big thing. But like we went up there, we had a good time. It was good for my girlfriend and her mom to get away from that house because it's chaotic for them. It was good for me to get away from work for a little bit because it was nice to, have a little bit of peace and breathe a little bit. We enjoyed like several good quality food. We were being lazy around the house more often than not. The little resort area that we kind of had. We did axe throwing one of the days, and it was absolutely hilarious. What was hilarious is, so there was 2 axes that we were throwing. One that was a little bit more heavier, and one that was a little lighter, but like the handle was broken a little bit. And at one point, we're messing. I think it was like the final round for one of them, and like for the final round, we made the rule of like, for those who don't know, with axe throwing, there's like a target in the middle that's like 5, 4, 3, 2, but there's these 2 little dots at the top left and top right there known as kill shots. And those are 7 points, except for the final round, they're double that. So it's 14 points if you hit that.
Oh.
And it was the final, I believe it was the final round. I try to go for the kill shot and I miss. So my girlfriend, she gets the lighter axe and she tries to go for it. She hits it, but she hits it with the broken handle, not the axe itself.
And it goes in like,
yeah, it stayed in the wood.
So it's a double-headed axe at that point. Jesus.
And basically, like I guess whenever you put more into strength and dexterity, stuff like that can happen. All right, but like that was fun, and it was good to have that for a little bit. Plus, there was one of those like the punching machines that you see on like TikTok or Instagram or whatnot that people are always like making memes about, like whether they're being like cartoonishly about to punch it or like they punch and then like they yell at it, or what the meme ones I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
there was one at the axe throwing place, and me and my girlfriend punched it. The highest I got was 814. The highest she got 815.
Oh
so, there we go. And then I went tubing, which is wonderful little thing to where you just get on there, tube, you just gently flow down the river. It was nice. It was soothing. I fell into the water at one point because I became a hero for a quick second.
Uh-huh.
Well, because like as I'm floating down the river, the water was a little low as it was. It was a hot day. Anyway, and at one point, someone further back from me got stuck on some rocks as they were going through. So they had gotten up to try to get loose from the rocks, and I guess they already had their sandals in the inner tube because there was a bottom to the inner tube, but their inner tube and their sandals were just floating down the river without them. So I'm like,
oh no.
So I was like, all right, here we go. I get out of my inner tube, and like the point where I'm at in the water, it's like not even waist deep or whatnot, or maybe it was about waist deep. But like, and I had water shoes on, but like I tried to stop at a certain point. I slipped on some slick rocks or whatnot, and I was fully submerged for a little bit, which in hindsight was stupid because I also had my glasses on. And if I lost my glasses, I would have been scred.
Yeah, good thing you didn't. They're still on your face. I can see them.
They're still on my face. But I was able to get it. And what was funny is like, because she was basically left behind by like her mom and her daughter, I think it was. And like, I think there was like another couple that was passing by or whatnot. And they were just trapped like, yeah, do you guys know each other? And she was like, yeah, no, I don't know who this guy is. He's just kind of helpful. I was a superhero today.
Oh my God. It's funny when you say tubing, I'm like, you say nice and gentle, so I assume that you were not being tugged on by a boat. You were just kind of going down the river lazily.
Oh yeah, no. It was basically just literally like lazy river for the most part. There was a couple of parts where like the water picked up just a hair, but just nice, gentle, just enjoying the sun, just beaming down on you.
So my experience with tubing is lake tubing, where you are tugged behind on the boat, and like every single time, without fail, the person driving the boat is always dead set on flipping the people on the tube.
Well, of course.
Like, come on, can't I just have a normal experience? But no, we gotta go up 5-6 feet into the air and then go tread on the back waves.
But that was basically the vacation. We all had a good time, more or less. I think her mom, who's like 60 years old, told me to thank my mom and that this vacation made her feel like she was 20 again.
Oh,
Uh, which was sweet. It was nice to hear that. And of course, unfortunately, I gotta get back to reality. Oh, there's no gravity, and get back to the grind of work. The only major thing that they announced at work is that in November we're having our official inventory time, which is basically where we shut down our entire operation. We go through, we count all the merchandise, and we make sure that we either like we need to make sure we have around what we project because we're a multi-billion-dollar company with a warehouse that's filled with millions of dollars worth of equipment. If you combine all of it, combine all the value and the price of everything.
yep.
So we need to shut down just for a little bit to make sure that like our calculations are right because things can be a cluster in that facility.
I would imagine so.
And so like in November they specifically gave like I think like a 2-week gap to where we can't like take any time off, which is I mean valid because they need all hands on deck to make sure that things are counted properly. So
Okay.
but yeah, but aside from that, that's basically been my week. Oh, I will say, I mean, weekends or whatnot, got to do a couple of really cool interviews for the podcast, for the Postmodern Art
Yes.
podcast. One of them was with a guest that their episode should be out by the time this episode comes out. John Dawes, a really cool pop punk artist. And then the other one is an artist called Das Nomo, who is basically the thumbnail artist for Team Theorist, aka Game Theory, Film Theory.
Oh.
Yeah. Which that one's a really cool interview, and I can't wait for people to listen to that one. But that's enough about my week. Iris, how have the past, I guess in this case, 2 weeks been for you?
Honestly, they've been pretty straightforward and all the same. We hired a brand new dishwasher. This is the continuation of the saga of the dishwasher.
I was gonna say, have they stuck around for more than 2 days?
Yes, they are great. He's a great fella. The thing about him is he is like nearing his 50s, so he's late 40s right now.
Okay, gotcha.
And he had worked in food service prior, but then he was doing fire restoration. So just cleaning up after like any fires that happen, just restoring the area afterwards. And then he was like, well, shit. I'm at a point in my life where I don't know what I want to do anymore, so I'm going to give back to old people. I'm not going to work for money. I'm just going to give back to people and help out. So that's pretty great to hear as far as
that's sweet, especially considering the line of work you're in. I mean,
oh yeah, it is a very fulfilling job overall, I would say. But the first night that we worked together, it was like he's a very good talker. Like he isn't overbearing. He doesn't do the small talk. He just like wants to have a genuine conversation. Which is hard for me because I am anxious as hell and I don't show that. But we had like a really weird heart to heart where we were just talking about things. I showed him Joey Valence and Bray, which was pretty funny.
Oh my god. I see. I'm thinking in my head that could go one of two ways. All right, he could either think, "All right, that's weird, but you know what? You do you, kid," or "God, these remind me so much of the Beastie Boys."
He did say that. He's like, "Wow, this reminds me of the Beastie Boys."
There you go.
Yeah, I showed him "Okay" from No Hands, which is my favorite song, one of my favorite JVB songs.
Okay.
But we also connected on a bunch of other things like new metal. I showed him Touche Amore, which is one of Sasha's favorite bands, and Enter Shikari,
Yes.
Alexis on Fire, just a whole bunch of bands that I have now been privy to because of people like Sasha. But then we also started talking about like family members that we've lost. And that's where we had our extremely deep heart to heart and something I was not expecting. Because the reason I found out that he is working to help these people is because his mother passed away. And he feels like he didn't do enough for her, or maybe that it shouldn't end there. So he wants to give more to these people. And it's definitely strange as when you work in a retirement home, you have to kind of become jaded to people dying. It just happens. They are old and it is coming soon. Like
Right.
it is to be expected. Um, but I was talking about some of the people that we had lost, uh, not in a negative sense, just completely positive because I like to remember
Yeah.
them and hopefully I put a smile on their face and help cheer them up, even if they couldn't mentally remember me.
Hmm.
But me and him were like tearing up and practically crying, and I wasn't expecting that at
Oh.
all. Um, Still in the weirdest sense, and I want to talk about this in a different episode, maybe where we talk about the trans experience.
Hmm.
um so like just as a little aside, as a transgender person, you have to kind of have to gauge conversations with people you've never met before
Right.
you come out to them, if you're still like fully stealthed like I am. And he's definitely one of those people that I don't think I could come out to.
Yep. No,
um,
I, I, I mean, I get exactly where you're coming from. I mean, keep in mind, I'm dating a trans woman and I'm in the Sun Belt region, which is like the biggest region where you got to figure out kind of more or less like, are they going to be cool with trans people or not? Because it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a list of questions that I've developed that are like, they somewhat probe into people's like political beliefs and
Hmm.
other things like that. And it was it's kind of crude, but the thing that tipped me off to the fact that he might not be okay with me is he made a fat woman joke to me. And as someone who is like, I'm not really a big fan of those things because I'm more of an advocate for body positivity. It was definitely
Right.
really weird. I was like, he was like, "You want to hear a joke about a fat woman?" I'm like, "Go off, King." um, but yeah, that's pretty much been my week. Aside from those small things, he's a great worker, and that has like relieved so much stress from me. And
Good.
now I've been focusing on the remainder of my week, which I gotta say, really really hard, but not for the reasons that I was expecting,
Okay.
because with our last episode with Tank talking about the work process and writing everything down and just trying to craft the plan and flex that muscle, I realized
Hmm.
that I work a lot. I work on a lot of things.
Yes, yes, you do. You're just sorry. You're just now realizing this.
So I have determined, like my normal editing process for every little different series that I do. So like how long it will take me to get stuff done. So for
Right.
episodes like these, where I really do, I put a lot of effort into the editing to make sure that the experience is cohesive for everyone watching or listening at home. um, I can easily spend double the recording length. So if this was an hour and a half, I could spend 3 hours on editing something like this. Um, which for like a passion project and a hobby, that doesn't sound too bad. But then you consider that I also edit for myself as just Irisu. I edit for myself as Loot. I edit like whatever tiny little idea I have, I add on to top of that. And I also like make random meme things that it all just kind of spirals out of control. And I've been in this point of thinking about like where I want to be in the next year or so, which is not something I've thought about in a long time. Um,
Right.
I've uh, I've basically decided for myself a long time ago that by the time I hit the age of 30, I'm just going to pick whatever I have at the moment that I'm the best at in terms of a job and just stick with that for the remainder of my life until I retire. Um, so I've been on a somewhat scramble to like get the YouTube and streaming career kicked off. Uh, but now my boss has just recently told me that she wants to retire in about a year's time, which
Oh.
means I might be promoted to being the manager of the kitchen, and that in and of itself is an extreme time investment because no longer will I have the luxury of just being able to sit at home all day. If someone calls out, I would have to be the one to answer the call. And you know how that would be with streaming. I would have to end
Right.
streams early, which would be just a meh experience. But we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I'm in the process of like planning out the next year of content.
Okay.
And I will probably be making a return to streaming too. So yeah, that's been my 2 weeks.
Well, just know that whatever the next year of content may lead to you, if you need any help, especially when it comes to editing this podcast, I'm here. Just say the word.
I'll pass the torch on to you. I've actually looked into it. I was looking into how much would it cost to hire a full-time editor, not for like taking over the podcast here, but just for my other projects that I want to do, for
Right.
things that I value less but are equally as important to upload.
Mm.
Um, so it would be the same that I make now, if not more, like a
Okay.
$24 an hour gig. So just thinking about that, if I became famous for some reason, I would not only have to make the same amount that I do now, I would have to make it double that in order to pay somebody else to edit for me. Um,
I would say, actually, also you got to keep in mind at least double that because, correct me if I'm wrong, with your current job, you have benefits and stuff, right?
I have access to them, but I don't use them.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes some sense. Okay, never mind then.
yeah.
Take back what I said.
I I make 20 an hour, and
Right.
I worked it out with a good friend of mine, ID10, who is a tech wizard, and also he does video editing as like a passion project for money for other
Mm,
people.
okay.
And I asked him, if it was him, how much would he need to sustain himself if he worked a full-time editing position? And he told me, truth be told, just to sustain myself, $20 an hour. And that's where I determined that $24 an hour to like go net positive is the most like the quote unquote least I could pay somebody. And that's what I want to do. Like we joked about it a week ago or so when we were like getting a G Fuel or something sponsorship. Like we get our own flavor. Um, my personal
Yes.
measure of success is being able to hire somebody as an editor.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
because it's not because I want to be lazy or like save that time, which is definitely a benefit. It's
Hmm.
I want to provide somebody with a job.
Yeah.
I
I
think that
mean,
would be so
especially.
cool.
I mean, especially in this kind of like internet space or whatnot, when it's so easy to like, it's easy to find the talent. It's just hard to compensate the talent sometimes, especially when you yourself like really wants to like get that help, but like you also can't provide for yourself with
Yep.
the online space alone. You have to provide yourself with another form of income, coming in to help compensate for that. So
It would be great to take everybody or not everybody, take somebody's worry away and let them live
yes.
and be creative because I'll be honest, if it was me, it wouldn't be by the hour. It would be a weekly basis. So you get your work done and you're on time, you do whatever you want as far as that goes. I don't care if you take the rest of the week off. I'm gonna pay you the same because that's how I see it. You worked just as hard, um, and that's kind of like what I want to promote because that was one of my favorite things working as a contractor for the sorority that I worked for as a chef.
Mhm.
I still got paid no matter how much I worked, but I still worked my ass off. So
That's fair. That's valid.
yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I know. So one of the things I'm gonna have to plug this again, but one of the things I like to do on the Postmodern Art podcast is ask people like where they hope to see themselves in 5 to 10 years, or not even that. Like, sorry, not that one. What I'd like to do is like to ask the guests, like if they had like access to anyone and everyone and more money that should be possible, you know, the Mr. Moneybag scenario, more or less. I have always said that if I had the opportunity to do that kind of thing, I would create a production studio so that every one of my friends and the people that I hold near and dear, whatnot, I can just bring them on in, let them go on their own creative ventures or whatnot and have fun with it, give them some sort of like stability and salary when it comes to that kind of stuff, whether it be on the animation front, the music front, the streaming front, like just give them like that stability to be able to do that and live off of that instead of like trying to you know, work, you know, a cooking job or work in the supermarket or work in the warehouse or, you know, all this, you know, all this BS, you know. It would be my dream to provide that to people. I know it's obviously pie in the sky, but if I can ever get to a point to where that's even remotely possible, then I know I've made it as a, you know, content creator.
It sounds to me like you want to be a talent agency owner.
In a way, yeah. In a way, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've always thought of that too. With the Moneybag scenario, if I had access to that, and you know, the me applying that to at least one person is a realistic goal, which I'm
Yes.
setting for myself. But the prospect and idea of owning my own talent agency, or at least being a part of a group that I can pay out people who are talented individuals, that is also like probably the longest term goal that I can have. The only issue is, you know, no degree in anything. I am just a basic service worker. Probably not going to happen in my lifetime unless I somehow strike it gold in streaming itself. But that, you know, that can always happen. You know, it can be.
That hey, if we look online in the internet world, stranger things have happened. All right, look at some of the peoples. Look at some of the biggest internet celebrities that are out there. Not all of them have the conventional path of like getting a degree in something and then oh my god they make it big. Some people start off with nothing and build themselves up to that certain point, making connections along the way.
Yeah. The thing that I've been trying to apply and learn about is luck as a skill. Something that I have been looking towards because there's this philosophy that our good friend Space Buffoon has,
Okay.
that I agree with 100%. Without prior ties, building yourself from the ground up is a test of pure luck.
Yes. Yes, it
But
is.
there are ways to help maximize your odds so that when the opportunities come around, the chances that you will succeed increase. So things from like having great audio production, visual production,
Mhm.
being very consistent, which is super important. That's like number one. Um, Providing high quality content as opposed to just smashing out as many things as you can at all times. And most of all, I think this is my most important thing, is building a community that is kind of like self-growing. So when you like have a Discord server, you're always encouraging people chatting in that server. And I say all of this, it is really hard. It is
Yes, it is.
extremely difficult because you're not just like pushing the boulder over the top of the hill, you are at the bottom of the other side of the mountain. And in order to finally get that ball rolling, you have to push it all the way to the top by yourself, and then it rolls down. Um,
Yep.
and that is streaming in a nutshell. And sometimes you will find a path on the mountain that will be smoother than the others, and that is where the luck comes in. Um, and that's kind of what I'm wrestling with at the moment.
I can understand why you're struggling with, you know, I maybe not struggling, but I can see why you're
Oh, it's a
content.
struggle.
Okay, fine. Then let me get back to my statement. Then I can see why you're kind of struggling with all these different thoughts, all these different aspects, especially when, like, you know, on the one hand, you know, you want to keep pushing for that dream that you kind of like want to achieve for at this point. On the other hand, you're in this kind of field to where there's an opportunity for you to grow in it, but it could also limit and restrict the other dream that you could potentially have. And it's kind of trying to find the weights, the checks, and the balances, and the juggling and the juggling. Why are we juggling?
That's the metaphor. but it's a good one, right? Because
Yeah,
in reality, 30 is not the end of my life. It was just some dumb predetermined goal that I set up for myself however many years ago. But I kind of have held on to that goal because it's something that I can look forward to. Um, which I really should have shifted the goalpost closer because I think I'm procrastinating even something that I love, because I know that I have so much time to try to achieve it. Even though every
right.
day that goes by, I do waste that time if I'm not, like it's not wasting time to like hang out with friends every so often and enjoy yourself, relax. But it is a
Right.
waste to like, I really shouldn't be playing video games right now. I have been playing for the last 3 hours. I should really stop, but then you don't, and
Yeah.
then that compounds. So,
Procrastination is a real thing that a lot of people, struggle with. Hell, I struggled with it immensely more often than not. I've kind of found a place right now to where procrastination is not the biggest thing for me, but like, you know, turn the clock back like 4 or 5 years, and procrastination is what basically flunked me out of college, at least for the time being.
yeah,
Because I would be horrible about, getting to deadlines and just be playing that same video game over and over again. And it's like, oh, I got this thing. I can get started on it later. I can get started on it. Oh, wait, it's a deadline. Fuck, 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 fuck. Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure for everyone at home, with our first episode that we had on Inside Voices, that is like I don't want it to seem like it's a core theme of our lives, but it really is.
It may not be a core theme, but it's certainly a recurring theme in our lives.
Yeah, we struggle with this a lot, and it comes down to a multitude of factors that go even beyond just laziness. It's
Yeah.
the is succeeding on the other end of the spectrum with doing things in terms of creative prospects like a podcast or in my case a YouTube channel and a stream. That requires so much sacrifice. There is so much you have to give up. You give up your personal time at the end of the night. um,
Yep.
you go searching for things, searching for opportunities and people, which Nathan has been doing a really good job at. Like it's been a while since I've seen you miss an episode entirely, or at least for a
I
week.
I was gonna say, like, the most I'll do is like I'll take like a week or a couple weeks off, depending on whether it's circumstances. Like, for example, even though I had some bonus content set up, like the week that I went on vacation, I didn't have any interviews or I didn't have any like official episodes really planned for it. Like I said, that's a bonus content set up, ready to go, but that's a different thing. That's a whole different story.
Hmm.
Um, but like, I'll take like a couple weeks off if I'm feeling like either mentally burnt out or financially burnt out.
Oh yeah, yeah. You commission every episode's thumbnail, so
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
you are
Let's not
wild.
let's not get into the let's just say that I am lucky with the circumstances that I'm currently in, to where I live with my parents, not paying for rent, but
Yeah,
I do pay for student loans and car payments and stuff. So it's not like I'm loaded with cash, but I can donate enough to make sure that the artists that I'm bringing on and trying to support are compensated for what they do. It's just hard to really build it up for anything else.
yeah. Go watch the Postmodern Art podcast.
Please
The
do.
podcast dedicated to giving artists all over the world the attention they deserve. I think that was it, right? Did I get it?
Close. I was close enough. As usually, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform.
Okay, okay, okay.
Hey, I'm not gonna hold it against you. But one, please do go watch it. Every single view, especially on YouTube. I'm part of the affiliate program there or whatever they got with that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So every view is a little bit more money, slowly but surely. But like, you know, I guess because I feel like I'm in this kind of like lucky situation to where like I don't have to worry about too many finances while still have some finances to pay for. Like, especially seeing how there are some artists out there doing incredible stuff, but like also financially struggling any little bit I can to help them in one way or another. I'd like to. That's why I'm more than willing to not build up any sort of savings account.
Yeah. My problem is, and I'll fully admit this, my depressive state is go and buy something.
Yep.
And then that compounds in the worst way possible in terms of takeout food. I get deliveries so
Yeah.
often because I'm like, I really don't want to go outside right now. I really don't want to go see other people. Um, so I'm always not having a savings account for that reason, and I'm working to change that.
I honestly, I would have figured it was more of the different aspects you have with what you're doing, like with streaming and stuff like that, like paying for some thumbnails here and there for your stuff, or paying for certain games that might eventually turn out to be stuff that you stream whenever you do stream, or like paying for a certain model or paying an artist for a certain thing.
it,
But I also,
sometimes.
but I also understand when it comes to the buying, delivery and stuff like that, especially for someone in your field. It's like you already work around food, you already cook enough as it is. I don't want to cook a little bit more. Like goodness.
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say on the other side where we are already working, we both like more specifically like me and Nathan have established jobs. So it's
Hmm.
not impossible to imagine a life where we don't do the other half and we just make the money that we have and relax and essentially live out the rest of our lives perfectly content, like absolutely content with the money that we make. But that's the problem is I want to make an impact, and I know that Nathan wants to make an impact on people, not just in like a selfish way, but like even the one interaction you have with a person for a 3 hour span can change their life and changes ours because we learn something new and eye opening that we have never heard before. Um,
Absolutely. I was gonna say, like, for me, I have always said, like, I literally at any moment, and I've debated this several times, but this is before I started taking antidepressants, thank goodness.
mhm.
Um, which I highly encourage people to at least talk to their doctor if they feel like that's something that might help them. But no, I have debated several times of just literally shutting, like, not deleting everything, but just like shutting down the channel, leaving all the videos up, and just like stepping away from everything. I have debated that over and over again. But whenever I started the Postmodern Art podcast, I didn't go into it with the mentality of, hey, this is gonna be my money making venture. I'm gonna be making my way over to New York or to Hollywood. And I'm gonna be interviewing the best and brightest artists that the people have to offer. No, I went to it because it was a way for me to be able to creatively express myself by showcasing the love I have for incredible people. While on the flip side, feeling like I can leave an impact on an audience, especially in a social space like this, to where there are people that may want to do something very similar, or people that love and appreciate that same kind of art. And in a way, me exposing the world to these incredible artists, if it couldn't just inspire one, I've always said from like, I want to say like episode 1 or maybe episode 50. If I could if I could just get at least one person to be inspired by a conversation that I get to have, whether it's because the artist that they had that I brought on said something inspirational, or the artist that I brought on has a very similar story or some very similar path to someone wanting to do something that artist did, then I feel happy. I feel like I have accomplished something. I feel like I have left an impact, no matter what happens from here on out.
Mhm, mhm. And I'm kind of in the same vein, but I don't know if Poison Points like consistently is something that I want to keep pursuing. I think it's like an
Okay.
every so often thing. It's going to be like I have a person I meet, I really want to get to know about them. Let's sit down for an episode, upload the episode, and I'm good. But it probably won't be nearly as consistent as something like this,
Hmm.
because as you know very well, it is extremely exhausting to find somebody that can be on the show.
Yes,
Find the
yes, it
right
is.
time and do all of that. So I'm
I'm.
holding off for the time being.
I was to say I'm currently like at the time that we're recording, I'm currently dealing with that because I have episodes planned for the next couple weeks, and then I have like a week, a gap in 1 week that I just need to fill with just like a random artist, and then I have Das Nomo, the one I talked about earlier, is going to be on the first week of October, and I want to fill out the rest of October with people that are more or less like in the Halloween feel, whether it's like the horror sense or the spooky spoopy stuff,
Yeah.
so like finding those guests that fill certain scenarios and certain time frames, yeah, I know that struggle.
So slight segue into today's topic. Um, I have many work stories that I could tell,
Hmm.
but I'm curious. Should they be positive or should they be negative? Because I don't know. Some of my stories can be real bummers.
I Okay, let me put it like this. First off, I feel like this could be like a multiple part series or whatnot. Like we
Uh-huh,
can
uh-huh.
like we could have several different stories of like our work stories or whatnot. Like this is just we'll label this one like part one or whatnot. Um and just have part two whenever we have
Feel
something to get
like
to
it.
it. I feel like if we just have a mix of both, like that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like for me, I got a mix of good and I got a mix of bad when it comes to my stuff. Like
Okay.
if you want, I could kick things off with my first story because it's a positive one in a way of like it's a funny story.
Hmm.
Um,
I was just gonna
but
say if we segment this into different parts, it's all right, hello everyone. I'm Irish. I'm 40 years old. Welcome to part 505 of my worst work story that I've ever had.
was it? Is this gonna be our yesterday I asked you series or whatnot? Like, yeah, we're gonna have like 200 parts, and that's how we're gonna be defined by our obscure work stories.
I guess so. I mean, if anybody at home relates to any of this, and I guess early homework, because that was something that I didn't include in the last episode, or that we didn't touch on as far as homework goes. But if you have any bad work stories or good work stories, just DM it to us. We want to hear what you
Yeah,
have to say and what you've gone through.
if you have any interesting work stories, we should probably say good or bad, either way, one way or another, because like even something that may seem mundane for some is always a fun story, especially for us. Because in fact, that for you guys, it's a way for us to kind of get connected to you guys into your world, seeing how your work scenario is say different than mine and Iris's. Like I don't know about you, Iris, because I know you've had a lot of work with cooking. I don't know if you've had much time to work outside of the cooking space, but I've had a hand in at least three different fields, and it's very unique how each one is works out in a way, or at least the different experiences I've had in each realm.
Yeah, hit me with your story. I want to hear. I'm curious
Well,
if this will be a good or a bad.
no, this one's gonna be a good one because I'm gonna tell you specifically about the first job I ever had.
Okay.
Um, Now, I wasn't a person that worked in high school, mainly because I didn't have a car in high school because I kept lying to my parents about not doing homework and being grounded all the time. Um, because
Ah.
because I lived in a time where No Child Left Behind was a thing, and I could get away with not doing homework for the longest time before I turn it in and make a decent grade on it. I was a horrible kid. Anyways, but my first job was in high school, and it's quite a or not high school. My first job was in college, and it was a surprisingly big job in college. See, I want to say it was like within the first month of going to this college, which is a college known as Valdosta State University. It's in South Georgia, 20 miles from the Florida border. To give you kind of a rough estimate of where it is,
Hmm.
um, I was hired on to be the official mascot of Valdosta State University. So our team name, because like there's all sorts of different team names like the Bears, the Titans, the Giants, all this kind of stuff like that. We were known as the Blazers.
Okay.
Which I know what some people have in mind, and I wish. No, for us it was literally just like average person from the neck down, but like the head was a literal flame.
Okay, that's kind of sick as fuck. Okay,
no, it's cool, and I will send you an image of me dressed up as Blaze. That was literally his name. Because I have a very specific photo, and it leads specifically to the story that I'm going to be telling you about today. So luckily, I was lucky enough that most of the time that I was Blaze was during football season. This is the time that I was a very big fan of football. So like for me, like in high school, I only played like 1 year of football itself, and I wanted to do more. So like for me, being the mascot for Valdosta State University, which was a pretty good college, football squad at the time. I got to, part of the parameters of being is I got to like dress up as a football player for the most part, with the exception of the giant, flame for a head, which I just gotta say is the worst headgear I ever had to wear. Like straight up, because like there's only 3 holes on it: the head that you put your hole in, then the 2 eye holes. All right,
and it was God.
And it was like foam and stuff like all around it. And the thing is, the 2 eye holes were covered by a piece of plastic that was supposed to represent the sunglasses. So like. And like I said, we're 20 miles from the Florida border. So it's very easy for me to like, when a game gets started, for me to get really hot and for those glasses to get really fogged up because it's so hot and humid. But I had I got to do so many cool things because of being Blaze. Like, going into the crowd for a little bit, like taking photos with the kids that are excited to see the mascot for a little bit. That was always fun. Being like with the team to celebrate like certain achievements, or like, I remember going to one of like the neutral site games or whatnot, to where I got to go to, where was it? I want to say it was like North Carolina, or it was like Augusta, Georgia. Like I got to travel away and like be dressed up and like celebrate with the team or whatnot. But like in particular, especially with how I looked in the Blaze outfit or whatnot, let me just give you an idea. I'm not exactly the most slender a person. I'm a little, thick with a good couple of C's to go with it. Even with like, all this, the equipment, like the football jersey. I'm pretty sure the jersey I had number 79. Probably because that was the only jersey that would fit me comfortably. Because like there was no way my fat ass was gonna fit in a number 1 that would normally go to like the wide receiver that's speeding down the sideline. All right.
Oh yeah.
But one of the like people would always like complain on. Well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let me take a step back. And around this same time that I went to college, there was a certain app going around called Yik Yak. Have you ever heard of this app before, Iris?
No, okay. Actually.
It was a social media website designed specifically for colleges. Like you signed in and you pick like particularly like what college you're attending or whatnot, and it goes there. And it's basically Twitter, but everyone is anonymous.
Oh yeah. I've not heard the name, but I know the concept for sure.
Yep, and like it was specifically like the anonymous Twitter feed for like I get. No one knew who anyone else was unless you like, do a little research and give a little context or whatnot. Like a certain person could be talking about like, oh, such and such is being a bitch, or like this teacher did this and that, and you can know exactly like, oh yeah, this is such and such. Like they're obviously talking shit about that. But for me, again, in this hot and humid outdoor weather, freaking, barely can see, barely can breathe. There were many times where I had to like step away to like the locker room just to lift the head up a little bit and get some Gatorade to make sure I don't suffocate that thing. But I put the head on. One of the things that we would do is every single time that the Blazers would score a touchdown, the ROTC would like do like 6 or 7 push-ups to represent like the touchdown. Now I would go over to them and I would be like the one counter, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just about every single time on Yik Yak, people would tell me like, why doesn't Blaze like do push-ups with them? Why doesn't he get down and do push-ups with them? it's not the fact that I was fat. It was the fact that I couldn't breathe. All right.
Oh,
If I tried
yeah.
to do one, I would suffocate. All right. But the reason why I'm telling this story today is because it was after one game in particular. I think this was like I think this may have been after my first game being Blaze. I don't know exactly how this came across or whatnot, but it's like, I do the game, have a fun time. I'm pretty sure we win or whatnot. I get back to my dorm, like I brought like the equipment with me or whatnot. I brought like the headgear and like the football stuff that I brought with me and whatnot. And like the people in my dorm knew I was Blaze. It wasn't like a big, well hidden secret or whatnot, at least amongst them. But for the general like crowd, if they didn't know, they had no idea who I was. One of the people in my dorm came up to me as I was like getting myself away. He's like, dude, you're not gonna believe this. Showed me Yik Yak. And again, keep all the context I gave in mind.
Uh-huh.
All right. So someone on Yik Yak just casually, just randomly just said, my God, Blaze looks like he's got a beer gut today. Which valid, fair enough. That stuff. But the best part was someone in the replies, and the guy who showed me is like, I swear it wasn't me. The guy in the replies said, that's not a beer gut, that's an engine to the love machine. And I wish I was that cool to do that myself, because that is the greatest fucking compliment I ever got for a job I've ever done.
I mean, it's already said and done, but you gotta, at that point, you ride the high of that. Every single time you go back as Blaze, you think of yourself as the love machine.
I'm the I'm the NSFW version of Bert Kreischer. I am the love machine.
I actually have always wanted to do something like that as far as being a mascot. But my school never had a mascot. I've been to two small schools, and we just didn't have anything like that. And I never went to college, so yeah, there's also that. So
that's valid. And I mean, keep in mind, I was only the mascot for like a year, because after that first year, I did all the home football games. And I think I did like one home basketball game and like some graduate event. But like after that first year, the people that were in charge of Blaze like switched departments or whatnot, and they hired someone else. And I'm like, good on to them. I'd like to breathe. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you look on Yik Yak after that, and everyone's like, "Where's the love machine? Where'd it go? We lost it. This new Blaze stinks."
I actually had a buddy of mine. In fact, the buddy that this shirt is for or whatnot. It's a good buddy of mine. On the wrestling scene, he's known as Jack Miles. He has the gimmick of the sweeper or whatnot. But he actually dressed up as, got hired on to do Blaze for like a couple events here and there or whatnot. And I asked him, like, is it still sucks at breathing that thing? He's like, oh yeah, no, it was absolutely miserable. That's sorry, go on.
Just that's a good way to start, I would say. Because I feel like with my story, I'm about to bring the house down.
Well, bring it down, Iris. Bring it down.
Oh God. Okay, so everyone knows I've been cooking for a long time now. I almost 10 years worth of cooking. My first ever cooking job, I was in a local place, local to me, so I won't name where it was. But it is an extremely famous location in my city. Like if you were over here on the West Coast and I did name it, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. And I had worked really hard to become a cook there, and this was my last year of cooking. And we had been through several managers, because my hiring manager got promoted, and so the manager after her was kind of shitty. She got fired. The manager after her was kind of shitty. She got fired. And
I'm noticing a trend.
Yeah, it was this last manager that I was working with for one of my last shifts, because I was going to be leaving at some point. I was done with that job. I was going to be moving away to a different town, to go live with my my freshly wedded wife, I guess you could say. Um,
Okay.
and it was a night that I was training a new kid. He had had no cooking experience prior, so he was kind of like me, and I wanted to, be kind and give him all the time that he needed to, explore and actually learn how to cook. So me and him, we were having a great time. It was a really slow night. My manager was there all night for some reason. I really couldn't tell you why she was there. I think she was just covering. Um, but when I tell you that she was being a bitch, she was being a bitch. It was it was awful. And in the midst of all of that, while I was training, we got slammed. Like
Okay.
on a night that we weren't supposed to have that much, that many people coming through. It was like a Sunday morning. Like everyone was there. Um, and I worked in an open kitchen, so everyone could see the both of us cooking, and we were practically like within arm's length of all of the guests that could see us.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, my friend, my trainee, my small child that I'm training to be good and strong, I can't train you right now. I'm going to be doing a majority of this by myself. And he looked at me, he went, okay. So I'm going along. I'm cooking at like 2 times the capacity that I normally do. With the other guy providing as much support as he can from what I've taught him already. Um, all night long, I am being shadowed and nitpicked by my manager.
Oh, that sounds
She she
lovely.
she will not leave me alone. She's like looking at the food that I'm putting out. She's like, "Oh, that isn't right. Oh, this isn't right. Redo it." All night long, even though it was perfectly serviceable food, and I was essentially the only person cooking, and she was just sitting there looking at me and like complaining the entire night. And I keep my cool. I don't say a single word to her. I do
Right.
all of the things that I'm meant to do. I go to, we finally finished the rush, and I'm like, okay, set my spatulas down, like the sweat's falling from my forehead. I blow out like steam out of my mouth. It's like cartoonishly, I worked that hard. And everyone at the counter behind me was like, holy shit, that was awesome. And, like, thank you for working so hard. And the person who was directly behind me was like, hey, I saw how your manager was treating you. I just want to let you know that you did an amazing job. And that made me feel great. It was wonderful. And I was like, thank you, thank you. I got a lot of tips that night.
There
And
you
then
go.
I pulled my trainee outside because we finally had the opportunity to take a break. And I was like, hey, yeah, that's kind of what the workflow is. It will be hard, but you just got to push through. And I was giving him his speech, and he was beaming a little bit. He was happy. And guess who comes out the door? But my manager. Um,
Right.
she railed me. She was so angry because the guy who told me that did a good job told her off and was like, "You're a bad boss. Like you didn't you were not
Oh.
helping in the slightest just by standing there and complaining." So she came out to me and said that it was my fault that she was treated like that.
I'm sorry. Timeout. The audacity of this bitch.
For real, for real. She was so mad at me, and I do distinctly remember not saying a single word to her. I didn't say
Mhm.
a single thing to her all night long. I just wanted to get through the night. It was one of my final 2 or 3 shifts that I was going to be working. I wanted to go
Right.
off on a good note. Um, but she was red in the face. My poor little trainee, all that light sunk away from his face. And I did learn later that he quit shortly after I did, which is a little sad.
Ah.
Um, but uh, that whole night, I decided that I was going to be a catty bitch. Um,
Okay.
so we had a no music policy because we are an open kitchen, which is totally understandable. I get it. I ain't complaining about that. But after we closed, I had my music that I was playing while I cleaned up. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing about me is I'm a detailed cleaner. I was on my hands and knees cleaning everything. And she came around the corner and went, "Hey, no, no music, no music." She like snapped at me. She was still angry from earlier. And I was like, okay. That I reached for my phone. She saw that I was reaching for my phone. She went back around the corner and I turned it up as loud as I possibly could. And that was one of my last shifts. I did learn very, very shortly after the other guy had quit. She got fired for doing the exact same thing to somebody else. One of the more experienced cooks. And let me tell you, Nathan, if you've ever worked in kitchen hierarchy, the people who have worked there longer than you take priority over anything else, even the managers. So,
Yes. Yes, they do.
um, so I have a lot of stories like that, and to me, like that is like a slightly negative one, but I do remember it fondly as being a night where, um, like I had the support of all of the people who were watching me, which is just a great goddamn feeling. Like when you worked your ass off and everyone at the counter is smiling at you, and they're happy and they're quiet because they're eating their food. That
Mm-hmm.
that was what I originally loved about cooking. And then as I transitioned out of that, I kind of lost that, but I still think about that moment fondly and my petty revenge.
I mean, say what you want. That's a like you say it's negative. I think that's just a cool ass story. Like basically like saying as loudly as possible without saying a single fucking word. Fuck you, let me do what I need to do. Like
Hmm.
that is the most badass old moment. Like it's something that you would expect from like I don't know, like the Bear or something like that, like that TV show on FX.
Yep.
Like it is a badass moment more than anything else. That is Iris's badass moment.
I did leave that place with the title of Ninja Chef. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because we had three grills, and underneath all three grills were like six total shelves inside coolers. And because I'm very tall, I'm 6'4".
Mhm.
Whenever I was working alone, I could literally from the far right grill reach all the way to the far left grill's bottom left drawer and grab whatever I needed. And all of the kids that came in to watch me cook were like, "Oh my god, she's the ninja chef!"
Oh,
So
that's awesome. That is
overall,
badass.
a light note for that job for me, and then it all went downhill from there.
Well,
uh,
I think I think I have a story in a very well when it comes to the mood and the mentality. I think it's about the same level, but it's just one of those like it's just more of it's funny because of how stupid it ended. Um,
okay, okay.
so again, keep in mind, like I said, my first job was, being the mascot or whatnot, Blaze. And
Hmm.
so as we approached the summer, my mom was like getting on to me because it's like, hey, if you're going to be spending the summer here in Florida, my mom worked in Florida, or my mom lived in Florida at the time, around the Orlando area. And, my mom and her roommate, they're like, hey, where you're going to be down here for the summer, why don't you look for a summer job? And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I remember I spent spring break looking for a job, and I was able to get one while I was there. Uh have you ever heard of a franchise called Papa Murphy's?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. For those who don't know, or at least I don't know if it's the same where you are from where I was, but Papa Murphy's is a franchise of a pizzeria, but they don't cook the pizza. They basically
Yeah.
like take all the ingredients and everything. They get everything set up and then they give it to you. You take it home,
Yep.
pop in the oven, cook it to your specialty, to your likeness. You can either have it barely cooked or extra crispy.
For mine raw, actually, yeah.
I just eat the pizza dough as is. Like it's a nice little snack.
Mm,
Toss everything else in a salad.
salmonella.
Salmonella indeed. But like I was able to get a job working there as a sign spinner. Because keep in mind, like I said, I used to work as a mascot, and so whenever I was looking for jobs, and I was looking like all over the place, like relatively close by to where my mom lived, they saw, oh, well, he used to be a mascot. Well, we are looking for a sign spinner. I'll tell you what, you think you can do that job? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so, like, I got the job, and it sucked. I'm not gonna lie, it sucked. It's not the fact that that I was a sign spinner, because that it is what it is. Like, you see the people out there just like spin the sign however they want. Luckily I could get some, got some earbuds with my phone. I was playing music, so I was like, that was good to enjoy it. But like, I would only work like 3 or 4 hours a day, like a couple days in the week. And keep in mind, like I said, I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Yep. It's damp and hot as hell.
It is damp, it is hot, it is muggy, it sucks, which is why I loved when it rained, because when it rained, it actually let me go inside and work, at least in the kitchen, like doing the dishes or all this different kind of stuff, which I was perfectly cool with. That's what I wanted to do. That's why I applied to Papa Murphy's for. I didn't need to know how to set up the pizza. That, whatever. Like, if you just put me in there and have me do the dishes and shit like that, like, I'm cool with that. That's the experience I was looking for. And it eventually got to the point where I think they got like a new like regional manager, and they were like, no, you're hired to be a sign spinner. So yeah, if it's raining outside, you can either stay here till the rain stops or you can go home. Which half the time I'm like, fuck it. But also around that same time, I actually was able to work a job to where I actually worked inside a kitchen, actually got to cook or at least serve food.
Hell yeah.
It was an Indian place called iSpice in Orlando, in like a mall not too far. So I was making Indian food at a mall food court. So it wasn't like the most authentic, but like it was pretty authentic, considering the fact that a lot of the recipes came from my owner, who was from India.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was at least a good couple of times to where I would like, like an opening came up, like someone had called out sick or something along the lines of that, and we'd have like a WhatsApp to where like we'd have like the group text or whatnot, and I saw that and I would call out for the sign spinning place to go work at the Indian place because air conditioning. Doing the job that I actually kind of wanted to do, actually getting to enjoy Indian food, because when I worked there, it was the first time I ever got to enjoy Indian food. Like, I'd never had Indian food before, and I love it to this day. I love Indian food.
I am also a big fan too. Yeah, love
right?
Indian food.
Like, especially whenever you get like the properly done like chicken tikka masala with like some garlic naan to go with it.
Yes,
like,
that is just to interject a little bit. That is my favorite meal to cook. Not as like in a restaurant, but for friends and family, because it's so warming. It's like so homey.
What was cool about the Indian place is they actually had like the proper like oven that they used to cook naans in or whatnot. Like they had that again in a mall food court of all places. Like the fact that they had that kind of thing, which was really cool. I was so hesitant to actually like try to do it in the first place, but like the more I worked there, the more comfortable I became, like actually doing that kind of stuff. But I'm jumping ahead a little. Let me get back to again, sign spinning and stuff like that. What was funny, like I remember at one point, like as kind of like a celebration across all branches or whatnot, the regional manager like took us all to Cheesecake Factory to enjoy dinner at one point. I remember I actually left, I remember I actually left there with like 3 cheesecakes because I wanted to get one for my mom and her roommate. Which they were cool enough to like let me do it because they were paying for it. So it's like, cool. Also, I appreciate you. Again, I am simple sign spinner. I'm not like the manager or whatnot. The manager, by the way, really cool person. I forget what dude's name is, but like he was a really cool person. I wish I kept up with him after what I'm about to tell. So I think it was literally like a week or two after the Cheesecake Factory stuff. another situation of like, hey, this person's sick. Do you think someone can fill in for them? Call out, call Papa Murphy's. Hey, something came up. I can't come in today. I hope you guys understand. I would, work that shift at Ice Spice, and then the following day, I think I told like one or two of the employees that were there, like, yeah, sorry I wasn't here yesterday. Something came up at my other job, and I had to go in for that. That was a dumbass move, Iris.
Yep. You don't tell that to anybody.
Yeah, you don't tell that to anyone. Number one rule when it comes to multiple jobs: don't talk about your other job while you're at your job. And so I remember a week or so after that happened. I remember I was waiting for my schedule and I was asking for the manager because like the other people got their schedules. Now I'm like, hey, when what hours I'm gonna be working? And the manager's like, oh yeah, I'll send your schedule later tonight. Sorry about that, man. Or I'm sending you something later tonight. I'm like, okay, just wanted to make sure, And then later that night, I got an email from my manager, basically saying, while we appreciate your service here at Papa Murphy's, we're gonna have to let you go.
Oh no,
ladies and gentlemen, I got fired from being a sign spinner.
That honestly, if it was me, that would have been the lowest impact. Like, okay, cool, awesome. I was thinking of leaving anyway.
What? It wasn't. It was crushing in the moment because like some of the coworkers like I was cool with, and I thought I was really like making a cool connection, and some of the cool stuff I did get to do or whatnot. But at the same time, like I was a sign spinner.
Yeah.
I think what's just more hilarious is that is literally the only job I have ever been fired from. Any other job that I have ever had or whatnot, I usually quit. That is the only job I have ever been fired from, and that is for being a sign spinner, literally standing outside for 3 or 4 hours talking about like the newest pizza that we have or the newest deal or whatnot.
My thing is like, I know that you liked him as a manager, but I feel like that should have at least been something to talk about, not just fire you for some reason.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Like, you hear about that, and my first thought, as someone who has had managerial training, is sit down. All right, so I heard you're working at another job. This wasn't something that you talked to us about previously. Are things going to be working out for the both of us? Do we need to change scheduling? Granted, you're a sign spinner, so I don't know how much your manager weighed on that.
I think that's what it was, more or less, at the end of the day. Just a factor of like this isn't like I wasn't one of the people that was like setting up the pizza or like getting the dough ready and all that kind of stuff. Like I was a sign spinner. I was like, it's literally that meme of like there are sharks, there are fish, there's coral, there's whale, crap. And then there's you. But do you want to know what's the most ironic part about all of this situation?
Yeah.
As soon as I got fired from there, I decided to look for another second job, and the place that I got hired on, Little Caesars, actually making pizzas.
Let's go. Fuck you, Papa Murphy's. Well, Papa Murphy's is chill. Overall.
Oh no, Papa Murphy's is really cool. I wish there was one like closer to where I live. Well, I wish there was one around where I live because I enjoyed at least like the perceived freshness that they had with like the pizza or whatnot.
Yeah.
Freaking. If I remember correctly, like about a couple years after I got fired from there, that location got shut down and got turned into like a Blippy or a Jersey Mike's or some Subway shop.
Yeah. So like, you not spinning that sign for them really ruined their reputation.
They are ruined.
This is the second time that you've left a job, and you've like left such an impact that one, no one remembers the love machine, and then two, their whole business shuts down, or at least that building.
Well, it wasn't the whole building because it was part of like a little strip mall that had like like an orthopedic center and like a little like I think it was like an indoor like putt golf course or something like that, or some sort of like fun zone or something like that. And the place I was directly next to Papa Murphy's was this place called Tijuana Flats, which makes fantastic tacos.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So it at least got converted into something good.
Yes, yes, it did.
Did you ever see any side spinners after you, or
I
were you
think
the only
I,
one?
I think I saw like maybe one side spinner after the fact, like once. I don't remember, to be blunt.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Like,
mentioned that he goes home to his family and they killed him. They didn't take kindly to that.
I mean, for God's sakes, I was doing a job that they could have gotten a literal trained monkey for. Like that's all I'm trying to.
They find a coat rack and they're like, "Oh my goodness, he's perfect."
My God, you're an artist.
And it cuts to the coat rack and it's perfectly still.
Like there's a gentle breeze, and that's the time that like the sign does like a little flip.
And everyone cheered. Everyone clapped.
uh,
um, so still on my cooking experience,
right.
bringing it back and forth, equal for equal. We'll share in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about my dream job. So where I worked at the
Ooh.
the Davenport Hotel, in my city, and I I really mean it when I say that when I first started, I was convinced that I could finally forget about my age 30 goal, and I could just
Okay.
work there for the rest of my life. But things slowly took a turn. As we all know, I eventually walked out of that job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this also is in part, it has to relate to the trans experience, because I also feel like
Uh,
the moment that, because that was the job I came out as trans at, like that I was in the middle of it, and I just like I had the realization that my life doesn't feel right because I'm not living my life properly. Um,
okay.
but I did take a brave leap, and I came out to my boss, and I have a sinking suspicion. I can't really confirm or deny this. I have a suspicion that me doing that was what really turned around his attitude towards me, to being
Mm,
more negative. And as I started being more proactive in the kitchen about my gender, I had a lot of cool people there that supported me, and I had some other people there who like were vehemently opposed, and then the middle crowd that like didn't care either way. I'm just a person. Um, but I want to talk about one night that we had to work. It was a really busy event night. I don't remember what the event was, but it was
okay.
it was a Saturday night. Everyone was pouring on in. There's the convention center across the road, so everyone was just diving deep into the bar, and we were swamped. For a full crew, we were absolutely swamped. Um, and I remember, uh, I had just been freshly promoted to kitchen supervisor. I was not a sous chef, but I was just a step below, and I had been used to working on pantry. That was like my specialty. That's what I did the best. That's what I got my ass kicked in at one of my
Oh,
other jobs. Um,
okay.
and for those that don't know what you do on pantry, very rough, simple explanation: you make salads, you make desserts, you make appetizers. Those are the three
Hmm.
main things that you make. All were largely cold. Practically everything on your side is a cold item. Um, but I wasn't working on pantry that night. I was working on saute, because my one of my other halves, my other kitchen supervisor, was really butthurt that I never worked on saute. And I was like, okay, this is my weakest station, but fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyways.
Fuck it, we ball.
Yeah, fuck it, we ball. So we go throughout the night, and we're going, and my cook in pantry, who was still learning, like fresh out, just practically brand new to cooking in general, didn't prep enough of an item that we were selling. It was
Hmm.
the ahi tuna that they sell over there. Which, to be fair, the ahi tuna that we sold, we had to prepare in smaller batches because it either sold or it didn't, and when it didn't, it went bad, and bad
Okay.
tuna smells awful. And we
I wonder why bad tuna is not exactly the most alluring of scents out there in the world.
yeah, and bad, still raw tuna is even worse.
Yeah.
So there's that. And so he told everyone, he said, Chef, 86, ahi tuna.
Hmm.
And our head chef wasn't there. He was referring to the sous chef.
Okay, sorry, time out. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, yes.
What does it mean to 86 something? Like, is there like a specific reason why that's the code or whatnot, or you
So
know?
that is a military code for we're out of. And it does
Okay.
originate from military cooking and has just been kind of like outsourced from that. So whenever we say we're 86ing something, that means we're we're out of it. They're literally like at the moment I have no way of selling you anymore.
Okay,
Um
gotcha.
I'll take it back. I think he specifically said, should I 86 this?
Okay.
So my sous chef was on the verge of saying no, even though we were like absolutely swamped to the point where no one could step off station. And I just piped up and I said, yes, 86 it. We don't have time for that. And I thought that was an appropriate response because we were, in the weeds. And when you're
Hmm.
in the weeds, you got to crawl your way out. Um, to step off station is death in that scenario, metaphorical death, impossible to recover from. And then the night went on as normal, and I went home, went to bed, slept, came in the next day. I got written up for uh talking, I guess, quote unquote, talking over the sous chef, even though he hadn't said anything. And instead of like taking the opportunity to make more of the ahi tuna and just saying that we should 86 it. So even though I
Mm.
explained my situation, I was still written up for that. Um, and I was like, I was pretty peeved at that point in my career. Like, my other manager at the other job, I was like, silent, kept my cool. I just smiled and waved. This one was like, I'm frustrated because I felt like I did the right thing, and I feel like I'm being unfairly treated for a decision that I made on the fly. Um, Even though I have plenty of experience to know we couldn't have done it. Um, and I don't know, a weird experience. um,
I mean, I can understand, like, like, especially with how you explained the scenario, like you were already like swamped or whatnot, so why put on like another layer of like what you guys need to do when you could just simply like take the loss for that little bit right there and just focus on like what you already have when you're already swamped.
yeah, like the thing is that was on the pantry chef. Like he should have prepped more. Um,
Hmm.
but that's not something that um you can just what's the word? You can't punish that in the
Right.
moment. That's impossible. And like when you're a manager, the number one thing that you need to be as a manager is not reactionary to a situation. You have to like really think about it. Even if it's a quick decision, you have to think about everything that you do. So to punish anyone in that situation at that moment was just the wrong call. Um, I, you talk to the people afterwards, and I guess that's what happened to me. But I still don't think I should have been written up for it.
I hashtag stand with Iris because there's no way there's you shouldn't have gotten written up for it. That's just bullshit.
Yeah, if
Like you said.
anything, I wasn't the authority that night. The sous chef was there. He was the authority, so he could have very easily superseded what I said and done it anyways or had somebody do it anyways. And
Hmm.
I can't question that at that point. Um, but like, I don't know, man.
I mean, the fact that they just kind of like Yeah, that's way more on that sous chef more than anything else, because like you're the one that piped up, but like they're the authority. Like they could easily have said, no, ignore that. We're not 86 in it, you know?
Yeah. I I don't know, maybe it's because I have a resting bitch face, and when I
Mm,
take the tone of like, we have to do this in this moment, I might not sound like I'm the nicest person in the world, unless you know me and you know that I'm just like trying to be like upfront and cut and dry with you about something that we need to do or not do in that specific instance. Because I could tell you, I know that the people who were below me all respected me. Practically every single one had some form of respect for me. And the only people who had issues with me were my other kitchen supervisor and the upper management. Um, which is what leads me to believe that it was the trans issue, um,
yeah.
with them not really liking me as much anymore. Which, again, a completely different story. Uh,
Yeah. That's something that we can talk about for the episode when we talk about more or less the trans experience.
that.
Um,
Yeah.
I think with that, I have a story that I feel like I want to try to be on your level now when it comes to like the type of story that we're telling with this one
Hmm.
at least, because I'm hoping that with me telling this kind of level, you tell more of an upbeat one with the next one.
I'll try. I'll think really hard.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip ahead a couple of jobs. All right, so for context, so here's more or less like the work history, like as a whole. All right, so I already talked about the mascot, sign spinner, Indian Place, Little Caesars for like a month. You know, I worked that Indian Place job for a good couple summers, and then I would work with my dad at a cold storage facility, which I talked about when we were talking about with Tank last week. You know,
Hmm.
I got several stories from there, but I want to save those for another time. Um, and then my dad would work at the place that we're currently working at, so I would start with working with him, and this was around the time that COVID was a thing. Uh, Stayed there for a good bit, and then I left there to work at a Bud Light beer distribution center based around Athens, Georgia.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you that because it's important. All right.
Location, location, location.
Oh yeah, because when I started working there, if I remember correctly, it was late 2021. It was about the time that I started working there. Because so for context, I when it comes to the place that I'm currently working at, I was initially hired on as a temp to be a blocker. You know, because again, we move like tractors, excavators, skid
Hmm.
steers, all this kind of stuff. So they would have people going in the trucks and putting these wooden blocks around the tires and like strapping the stuff down to make sure that, you know, thousands of dollars worth of equipment doesn't get like bumped and moved around and cause thousands of dollars worth of damage to that stuff. I initially had that as a temp job, then got hired on full time about 8, 9 months later for a position that was the equipment operator. So I was making like $1 less. And then within the next year, new management got hired, got rid of the shift I was currently working on. The supervisor that was like the coolest person in the world left because she didn't want to work that new shift. Like a whole entire cluster of stuff happened. I left there when it was like at the peak of its chaos, and that's where I worked at the beer distribution center. I was making less there, but like the people there were so much better to work with. Like these, first off, it was a stable thing because it was like a family owned business that had owned it since I want to say like 1954,
Hmm.
if I remember correctly. So like already stability, nice. And especially with like some of the workers that like some of the upper management talk about how they've been working there for like 30, 40 years or something along the lines of that. But there's a reason why I emphasize again Athens, Georgia, because I started working there about late 2021. About January 2022, for those in the world of sports or whatnot, you would know that around that time, the University of Georgia, based in Athens, Georgia, won their first national championship since 1980. And everyone in the world celebrated. Like everyone, especially around where I was. Again, a lot of cool co-workers, a lot of them, you know, love the Georgia Bulldogs. So like when that stuff
Hmm.
was happening, and I worked at night shift at the time. Luckily, I was able to catch like parts of the game because there was like a TV in the break room, and like lunch, and then like catching like the tail end of it after we got done with our work or whatnot. Like, we were watching it. A lot of the people on like first shift or whatnot, they had left and they were watching the game one way or another. And then whenever Georgia won, a lot of them went out, they celebrated, they partied. Me, it's one of those like I watched them win, and I'm like, all right, well, shift's over. I'm heading home. I had I head home Tuesday, normal work day. Wednesday, I come in. Oh, there's a couple people missing. Oh, they got COVID. Oh, that sucks. That it's around that time. It's still a major thing or whatnot. And the following day, how many people do we have working now? For context, between the two shifts, we have about 20 workers. And like our job was we would get basically like a list of orders for each truck. And each truck would like go to like certain locations or whatnot. We'd have to like fill up however many like things of beer they need for like each stop. So like, there could be a bar that needs like two 12 packs of Bud Light, 2 6-packs of Budweiser, XYZ, all that kind of stuff. Real physical labor. I lost a little bit of weight there. Eventually gained it back after I left there, but that's a different story that I'll tell y'all. But it's like, that's basically like more or less the job. And again, there's like two different shifts that work that kind of stuff. There's the first shift and then there's the night shift. I guess technically second shift. First shift, they get a lot of the good orders or whatnot. But like on first shift, there was like, say like 10, 12 people. And then night shift had like 6, 7. I think across both shifts, there was like 16 to 20 people working all together. I go into work Thursday. There is only 6 people across both shifts.
Woof.
Because like I said, Georgia won the national championship on a Monday. Everyone went downtown to celebrate. Downtown Georgia, going to all the local bars, grabbing drinks. First time they've won a championship, like I said, since 1980. So people, they'll never know when the next one would happen. They literally repeated the next year, but that's a different story. And because everyone went downtown to celebrate, everyone got COVID.
Yep.
So yeah, like I said, what started off as like, 16 to 20 people end up as 6 people, which means that, hey, on the bright side, I got a really good paycheck that week because I got a lot of because the way that it would work is you have your base salary of, for me, $15 an hour, which sucks. But they had a system there to where if you pick like 1,100 cases, everything over that, like for every case that you pick past that, it's like 10 cents a case or something like that.
Okay.
So if you get like a really good order, like a lot of the people on first shift would, to where like they gotta get to like a Kroger and like the first thing they have to grab is like a 36 pack of the 30 pack of Bud Light or whatnot. And that's just one part of the order. It's very easy for them to get their bonus or whatnot. Night shift, not so much because we're left basically finishing up whatever first shift didn't get to.
Yeah. You have your base pay, and that's kind of a far cry. Morning shift's the magnum opus of the job.
And like the way you get promoted the first shift is by showing that you're doing a good job on night shift.
Yeah.
So, and that's if, there are people on first shift that either leave or, get fired, which they rarely fired anyone there. I'm pretty sure I was one of the first time, like when I got hired on, they had just started actually using a temp agency for the first time in their history. Because normally, like the way you get a job there is like you have to know somebody that already works there. And it's like, hey, my cousin's looking for a job. He knows how to operate a forklift. You think we can give him a job?
Yeah.
I found the job through LinkedIn of all places.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Big fancy, fancy pants Rich McGee over here. Because like I said, just about everyone got called out sick because of COVID of all things. Like I was getting back to, I got a really good paycheck because I got a lot of orders. Thursday was super packed. Friday was super packed, and Friday was like always a special day because Monday through Thursday I would come in at like, what was it, like 2:30, 3:30, something along the lines of that, and I would stay until the job is at least done. So I get at least like at least get my bare minimum like 8 hours. Like there are times where I would leave at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something along the lines of that. But on Friday, you had to come in with everyone else so that everyone worked the same shift. They come in at like 9 o'clock and they stay till at least 5 o'clock. If I did my math right, because I think that's 8 hours.
Yeah, that's 8 right there.
Yeah. So you would get at least that because they want everyone to just kind of like, Friday they'd shut down for the weekend, and so there's no working on Saturdays and Sundays. It was always a Monday through Friday thing. However, because like I said, there was only 6 people across 2 shifts that was distributing Bud Light, Budweiser, Michelob Ultra, any sort of like Modelo, like any sort of Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch product or whatnot. We're distributing that through all of Northeast Georgia. All of Northeast Georgia. North Georgia's a big state as is, okay? And so because 6 people working all that kind of stuff, that was the only time I ever had to work a Saturday, because again, we were trying to, more or less play catch up with all the orders that we had to catch up behind.
How many cases do you think you picked?
Oh my God. I'm pretty sure. Okay. I don't know like across the entire week or whatnot, but I'm pretty sure. But if I remember correctly, they basically combined Fridays and Saturdays numbers together. And I'm pretty sure I was still on the lower end, but I'm pretty sure I picked like 1,800, 1,900 cases or something like that. Yeah. And keep in mind, when they say cases, it's not just like a single case. Sometimes a case would be like a 2-pack of like a set of 2 like 12-pack bottles or whatnot. So and again, you're trying to stack these up in a certain way to where like it can get loaded onto a truck, shipped out, and not be broken into different pieces. Yeah. What was always funny is like you would think in a place like that, oh man, this beer's busted or whatnot. We can't do anything with the rest of these that aren't busted. You think we can take them home? No, we had a literal dedicated room to where if we had any good bottles of beer, we keep them off to the side, and then like usually on the Friday or whatnot, we go through there, see what was exactly busted up or whatnot, and then try to like make new cases of it in one way or another. So like if you drop the bottle, or if you drop the case of like a 36-pack or 30-pack of cans of Bud Light, and like a good handful of the cans like got destroyed, spilled out and all stuff like that, you throw away the bad cans, you spray down the you take that box, empty it into the sink, spray off the cans or whatnot, and you either create a new 30-pack or 2 sets of 24 or all sorts of different aspects of it, all sorts of math and stuff. But yeah, that was the worst time to be working at that place, but also the best paycheck I ever got at the beer distribution plant.
It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times.
it was the worst of times, but it was the best of paychecks.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I've been sitting here thinking about the last story that I want to tell.
Okay.
Mine is bittersweet.
Okay.
With an emphasis at the beginning being bitter.
Okay.
And I don't talk about this a lot. Mostly because like, it's not really an aspect of my life that I'm super interested in telling people, but this is Get Connected with Iris and Nathan, and by God damn it, I will get connected.
This is the one place in all the internet where we get to look into behind the lens and see the true Iris. So as much as you don't like to open up about this sometimes, we want to see the truth about Iris. So if I may, with all due respect, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna lay it on thick. This is right after I was freshly divorced.
Okay.
And I worked at an Applebee's.
Okay.
And I will say Applebee's was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my entire life.
Okay.
To a lot of people's surprise, I really loved working there. But the place that I worked was just so happened to be the place that had the same person that my ex cheated on me on with.
Oh no.
Um, I like after all of that happened and I found everything else out, I called my manager at that location and she immediately understood exactly what was happening with me. Very
Mhm.
kind, and she was like, "All right, take your time. Come talk to me when you have the opportunity to." And I came in at one point and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm too distraught to go find another job. Is there anything that I can do? Because I can't work here. And she offered to, uh, what's the word? I want to say repurpose me.
Basically, like
Transfer.
transition you. Yeah,
Yeah.
transfer, transition. Yeah.
She said, I can transfer you to a different location. It's a little
Yep.
bit out of the way, but at the very least, you'll be far, far away from here. Even though she never expressly told me, she kind of knew.
Hmm.
Um, and so I started working at this other Applebee's, and I was completely distraught the entire time, obviously, going through
Oh.
a breakup. But the thing that I do remember very fondly is how everybody treated me there. If
Hmm.
it was just as good, if not better, than the previous employees that I had worked with. Um, and I, in fact, completely surprised all of them because I don't think that they picked up on how sad I was. I just apparently hit it very well. Uh, but in me hiding that, I was like working 500 times more than any other human should. And
Right, because
um,
you were taking that more or less like sadness, and you were using work as a way to just get those thoughts out of your head.
yeah, I quickly became a very well respected member of the team. To the
Okay.
point where like even the manager was like, "Holy crap, how do you do all of this?" And for those that don't know, or if you've never worked at an Applebee's, um, the kitchen is divided into three main stations, and then they have prep in the back, and then a dish station. I started off as a fry cook, and then they transitioned me over into grill, so making all of the burgers and stuff. Apparently, my system for making burgers was so efficient that I like outsold everybody, um, like over like a set period of time because it was one of the busier Applebee's in my city.
Mhm.
Um, so like I was the only person on my station who didn't need a second hand. Everyone just like watched and they were like, "What the fuck?" Uh, but I do remember um again really really fond memories of this place. I remember having a lot of the people there like want to add me on Facebook and
Okay.
be friends with me. They were chatting with me. They were just overall really really chill. And they like I had to work a few dish shifts. They would stay and help me finish up my dish shift. This was in the middle of winter, by the way, so
Oh,
yeah,
lovely.
driving all the way back home was a rough thing. um I got some free meals, like free comped meals. uh like good I know it's like a bit of a broad story because I can't pinpoint a specific thing from that experience aside from the fact that they really helped me through this harrowing thing that I was going through.
Right.
And that I also, even though he was still in Applebee's, I learned so much more about compassion in the workplace because for those that also don't know, and maybe I might have talked about this previously with you, Nathan. I
Okay.
originally wanted to go to school to get a master's degree in uh, some form of like workplace management.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because
I th- I thought you were gonna talk about the thing that we had on the Two Truths and a Lie episode, like cybersecurity or
no, no,
whatnot.
no,
But
no.
this is later on. This is later
Yeah,
on.
yeah. This is a different goal that I had.
Okay.
Because from Applebee's, I eventually worked my way into Davenport, which was the dream. But this was
Hmm.
also in the moment a realistic thing that I was looking at, and I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to
Okay.
prove um, and implement across the country the idea of compassionate workplace environments being far more effective than the harsh workplace environments that I'm not sure if you've ever been in a harsh one in general. Um, but cooking is especially bad. The cooking
Yes.
industry is horrible. They even at like a minimum wage job, sometimes you can't even take breaks. You are not allowed to take a break until you finish your thing. And I
Oh
do
yeah.
remember I had at some other jobs I went like 3 or 4 months while I was learning the ropes where I didn't get a single break until the end of the day. Yeah,
Goodness, I was gonna say like when I was working at the Indian place at the mall food court or whatnot, like I would always make sure to at least take my 30-minute lunch at the
yeah.
bare minimum. But like breaks or whatnot would not be really breaks. That would be I'd get a little bit of food from the place because we could get like a little carton of it or whatnot. Get a little bit of food. There's like a little corner that we had like a little cabinet with like paperwork and all stuff like that, and I would just chill there and unless there's a customer that come up and I take care of their order real quickly. Because we weren't the most busiest place at that mall, but there were still times where like we were packed and like scrambling to like make sure that like things were refilled and orders were being taken care of. And do we have some fresh non out? Let the kitchen know about that. Or I'd be in the kitchen like cooking this stuff like, hey, we need some more chicken korma or we need some chicken sog. Get some fresh non going,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff.
When you're just that busy of a place, you kind of have to reassess, um, like how many people you need on in order to fairly compensate everyone with a break.
Hmm.
And that has always been my core philosophy that everyone needs to take their break. Everyone has
Yes.
to. It doesn't matter if it's an extremely busy, shitty day. If we don't get our breaks in, morale goes down. Overall efficiency goes down. On top of a bunch of other things, like you need to, as a manager, be in the trenches with your team, and working with them to build that trust, so to show that you can do it too, and it just motivates people, even though they know in the back of their mind, that you're also really busy, and you have 100 other things to do more than they do. So that kitchen, that Applebee's kitchen, taught me a lot about compassion. Um, Even though, like at the time, I couldn't even think about it, and honestly, didn't even think about it until now. This episode that we're recording, just how much I learned from them, and
Oh yeah.
the only thing that stopped me from working there anymore was we had, so this was during COVID. So first
Okay.
wave went through, everything was opening up again. But then the second wave hit, and we had to lay people off. And I was, unfortunately, as one of the new people, they said, we're really sorry, but seniority, we have to take care of our current workers.
Right.
Is We would love to have you to come back or something like that. Like, if you ever need a chance to, or ever have a chance to come back, please call us and we'll put you right back on. I never did call them back. Thinking about it, I have that opportunity still. I think, as long as that manager is still there. Uh,
You do. I I I I feel well. I feel like there's always that good opportunity to return back, especially if you leave on like good terms, regardless of the situation.
mhm.
I was gonna say that I was gonna save this story for another time, but like the main reason why I left the beer stacking place was because like again, like the pay was horrible. Like I already said, $50 an
Yeah.
hour. But like there was also like rumors and ramblings that like the truck drivers, the guys that would drive drive the beer to the places, they were gonna get a raise. And like, yeah, that's cool.
Hmm.
That's nice. Like make sure they're paid. But like, what about the people setting up the stuff that they're taking out there or whatnot? Like, don't we deserve a raise as well? And my lead asked our supervisor about it one day, and our supervisor, because they were in the broken room or whatnot, like the with all the smashed bottles and like the spare cans and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
he'd asked them about, like, hey, I heard the truck drivers are getting a raise. You think the forklift operators are getting the raise as well? And our supervisor straight up said, if you can find the cure for COVID in this pile of broken glass right here, I'll give you $1 raise.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, that like I love the guy. the guy was a great, manager, whatnot. But after hearing that, I just mentally had enough. And at the same time, at my previous job, the HR guy had literally asked my dad, because my dad was the reason why I got the job at the place I'm currently working at in the first place. But our HR guy talked to my dad and straight up just said, if Nathan ever wants to come back, he's more than welcome to. And on top of that, like the supervisor for the new shift that they implemented when I was there before I left, who's my supervisor right now, she is someone that, before she even got the supervisor job, always loved me and cared about me. Like, she's basically my work mama at this point.
Yeah.
Because she knows I'll get the job done, and like anytime I need to like talk about stuff, whether it's professional or personal or whatnot, she's usually one of the people that'll listen or like talk about it. Like, she was the one that encouraged me to go see my doctor about, talking about like getting antidepressants or stuff like that in the first place. Like, if it wasn't for her, like I wouldn't be there. So like anytime you have that kind of management that loves and respects you despite the circumstances that are outside of their control or whatnot, like they're always going to have your back no matter what. So like if the situation does arise and you need another job for one reason or another, I'd like to hope not, because I from what you're telling me, despite some of the clusterfuck, the job you're currently working is a good job. But like they said, if you ever need a job back at Applebee's, as long as that manager's there, like you tell them, and I'm sure they'll be like, "Oh hell yeah, get your ass in here! Come on!"
Oh yeah, permitted that there is an open position. I don't want to take somebody else's spot. I don't know if I would ever go back, because that particular Applebee's is very hectic comparatively to the one that I used to work at.
Right.
Which in its own way, I kind of like. We might have to dedicate another whole episode to, like either to the work topic or to work stories or whatever.
I already said at the top of this thing, like, this
I know,
is probably gonna be a multi-part series.
See, the thing is that I'm really weird. When things are dysfunctional, that is when I am operating at my best. And that is also when I am the most, like, it's not like happy, but I get the most excited. Like, I get the most adrenaline pumping through my veins when something isn't right, but I have the opportunity to work hard and fix that thing that isn't right. That's when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm winning this scenario right now.
because trust me, I feel the same way to an extent, because it's like at the end of the day, like if you go into that dysfunction and you come out and you make it somehow work, you get that sort of sense of pride of like, yeah, I did that.
Oh yeah, that was me. And then you go home and you pass out on your bed and you're like, oh god, tomorrow, please don't be like that.
and then you wake up and you're like, oh god, I still smell like the appetizers. Fuck.
I think that is a good spot to end off on. An extra long episode for all of those at home. Who, by the way, I don't know if this was communicated to you. One of our viewers, and we do have a consistent viewer at the moment, he listens to us at college, and he really enjoys being able to hear our voices and hear about our experience. So I'll call him out right here. Thank you, Hikari, for listening to us. And for everybody else who also listens in, I'm sure Christy as well, whenever she could get around to it. And my mom, who sometimes watches.
Hey, you know what? You also have another consistent viewer.
Oh yeah, me.
Of course. Look, I have always been a fan of loving to listen back to like podcasts and conversations I record, because if nothing else, like especially with what we're doing or whatnot, it's good to like reminisce and like rethink back on the stuff that we had talked about.
As the person who edits it and also has to like listen back like one sentence like 4 or 5 times before I move on to the next sentence. I hear everything over again, but I also make it a point to watch the episode again after I've finished the episode. Because I'm not kidding when I say I get a lot of joy from editing. Especially our last episode with Tank. Just the amount of laughter I had. Like I was holding it back because we were also watching GIW. But like all of the things that happened just making me smile. And it does feel good to listen back on certain things. Um,
Yeah.
and also try to figure out how to like cohesively make all of it come together so everyone gets their spot on the screen, and so on and so forth. But with that being said, anybody at home, the homework today for this week, just tell us about an interesting work story you've had.
Yeah.
It could be a supplement to an experience you have. You know, it doesn't have to be exclusively work. Like especially with my last story with the Applebee's there. But just tell us something that you have experienced at work, whether good or bad, that you think we would find interesting. And who knows, maybe in the follow up episode to this, we'll talk about those. So
I mean, I'd be more than happy to read about someone else's work experience. I'd be down for that.
yeah, and hell, this is an interesting idea that nobody has ever done before. I'm just gonna say it right now.
Oh.
But if you want to drop off like a an audio recording of that instead, and we could just sit back and listen to you, by all means, you can do so. Yeah.
If none else, I think it might make it easier for you when it comes to editing, because all you have to do is just plop in the audio right there and just us react afterwards. Like, whoa, wow, what an incredible story. No, I'm joking. It'd be a little bit more.
So yeah, if you want to send that to us, you can find us at Get Connected with Iris and Nathan on Twitter. So Get Connected Wien, which is also the same for YouTube, and our email, getconnectedwien@gmail.com. I'm pretty sure. Is that right? Yes.
I will double check after we get
I'll,
done recording.
Okay. I'll have it up on the screen, of course. Nathan.
Wait, actually, hold on. I think I can do it right here. One second. Yep, it is getconnectedwien@gmail.com.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we stayed fairly consistent. Don't worry, I'll cut out this blunder. They'll never know.
No one will ever know.
Nathan, if they, as in the metaphorical existence outside that may be listening to us right now, wanted to find you, where would they find your content and a way to contact you?
The best way you can find me is by looking up the Postmodern Art Podcast, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to fantastic podcasts, or you can find me on most social media at Postmod Art Pod. Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, most of those platforms, I am right there and usually a message away.
Hell yeah. And, Blue Sky being very prevalent now because of a recent fuck up from a royal CEO of Twitter.
Yeah, no joke. So
that's an episode in and of itself.
Yeah, oh God, the amount that we could tear that motherfucker down, I swear to God. Oh God, but if people want to say, maybe they're more interested in the Iris aspect of the Get Connected with Iris and Nathan, where can people find more about you, Iris?
Irisu. You could find me at just Irisu practically everywhere. I've essentially rebranded everything, I think, to where it needs to be. So Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and eventually Instagram. Instagram's hard because it requires a phone number, and I only have so many phone numbers. But that is in the works, and that's pretty much it. I guess, DM me on Twitter. I don't have a business email that I would like you to contact. So yeah. Hold on, let me collect my bearings.
We got Iris to break.
All right. So everybody at home, thank you so much for watching. And as always, again, this means so much to the both of us. But I've been Iris.
And I'm Nathan. And until next time,
stay connected. Yeah, we did it. We did it. Boom.
Boom, baby.